please, better call Saul Hudson. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, we short a chair.
Thanks for coming. It's great to see so many people here. I know it's been a busy schedule. We even have one of our panelists who's been on back-to-back ones and was breathless running over here. I'm Saul Hudson, and I'm with the PR agency Angle 42. We help Web3 startups get media coverage. But I used to be a journalist with Reuters, so this is me going back to my roots. I'm allowed to ask questions again. So I shall introduce our panel. And the reason that they're here is to share their perspectives on investing in the Cosmos ecosystem. They are the venture capitalists and will give you their ideas about what it is that they're looking out for when they're thinking of investing in this system. So we have Dougie DeLuca of Figment Capital. We have Amos Meiri of Node Capital, Yahed Momand of Cerulean Ventures, and Marek Sandrick from our wonderful hosts, Rockaway X. And we have our youngest cosmonaut in the audience, Cerulean Ventures' son here, 9-year-old, ready to listen to old dad's words of wisdom, of course. And so actually, I'd like to start with you, sir. When you're looking at Cosmos, right, let's think first of all about the positives. What is it that attracts, what is it that's attractive about Cosmos to make you want to invest in this area?
Sure. So I think if you came to Yelena's fireside yesterday, she was talking a lot about the philosophy of Cosmos, and that very much vibes with what we do. You know, the philosophy of being able to have free trade, sovereignty, and just optionality, right? So if you're a developer, there's a ton of optionality in this ecosystem. There's a ton of value to interchange with people. It's a pretty open ecosystem. It's very easy to enter. So that's really why we like it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Great. How about Rockaway? You guys have put a lot of effort into making this happen for everybody. That shows that you are backing Cosmos. What attracts you to it?
Yeah. So for us, it's I think on the two sides. So one, we see amazing developers entering the ecosystem. When we look across, so we are investing across a multiple ecosystem. However, the quality of the developers that is being attracted to this ecosystem is phenomenal. And we are seeing that it's because of the technological benefits that the Cosmos is bringing, right? So you have the modularity, scalability, interoperability. So all the big questions that the blockchains have been trying to solve are somehow being addressed either today or in the future on the roadmap with different projects. And second is also, I think it's at the moment also not obvious, right? So I think it's also there's a symmetry or it's a contrarian view in some ways, whether the Cosmos is, the place. If you look from the broader, if we zoom out outside of the crypto ecosystem, I think there's a broader question about the crypto itself. And even if we zoom in into the crypto investors, I think that there is still not a clear consensus that the Cosmos is the winner. And that's why we also think it's also a contrarian view for us.
Got it. Amos?
Yeah, I think it's about for us at least, the app chain thesis, right? You have all of those generic blockchains, each one of them, a little bit better there, a little bit better there. And we've built Colored Coins, 2012, a very, very old protocol on top of Bitcoin. And, we've seen generic stuff and how they develop. And I believe we're kind of in a second phase where we might have, new layer ones who are generic, but renovating, it's going to be very hard, but there are going to be ones like that. But I do think there is a room for, an app chain that's solving a specific problem. And because it's focusing on a specific problem, the way that you can build the token economics and everything around it really serves the purpose of that blockchain. And I think it's very hard to build such a good app chain on a generic blockchain, because you can just, the flexibility in what you can design, which is specifically to solving a problem, is much better, basically. So.
Great. So looking at that flexibility, Dougie, I hope you've got your breath back now.
Yeah, breath
You know, how about broadening on from that answer? You know, when you look at Cosmos, but then you compare it across the whole blockchain ecosystem, what is it that for you stands out that makes you think, oh, well, this is why I would go into Cosmos?
Yeah, so I think Cosmos is like the frontier of blockchain development. When you look at the notion of app chain sovereignty, it all started in Cosmos, and now that's kind of being widespread across all ecosystems, like Ethereum with rollups and these new concepts, like that's all derived from Cosmos. And I think Cosmos is going to continue to be that frontier, because people always like, oh, you have all these problems in Cosmos. Yes, we do, but like those are the problems that Ethereum's going to face over the next few years in terms of tribalism, liquidity fragmentation, all of these various issues. And we've been dealing with that for like 3 years now, because that's what we've been doing from the get-go. So I think Cosmos will continue to set the trend, and I've always looked at Ethereum as like seeing what Cosmos does right and taking those things, seeing what we do wrong and saying, nope, we're not going to do that. And so it's a really interesting place to be, to just learn about kind of like the future where everything's heading.
Jahad, what do you think? How does Cosmos shape up against others?
Well, I kind of want to like just plus one that, because people come to me like, why are you still investing in Cosmos? I see some stuff happening with the governance seems crazy, everyone's fighting, and I was like, this is actually a feature, I think, of Cosmos, because we foreground all of our governance issues, and we fight, and we get them out of the way, and we ship shit, right?
Okay.
So that's actually why I like Cosmos, whereas
Same.
everyone else is like, well, so-and-so Democratic thing voted, we're doing what they said, or, some really, I'm not going to name any names, some personality said we should do this, we're going to do it, right? There's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of, talking, signaling proposals, all this stuff. I think it serves us at the end of the day.
So you've come up with a new slogan for Cosmos. We fight, but we ship shit.
It's basically.
How do you see it, Amos?
I mean, I'm not a fan of politics, yeah, and it became a little bit more politic-like to build, and I think it's kind of like needs to go back to the basis of where it is. So I think that actually, like during this year, I feel it became like very politic. So like stepping back to where it started would be great.
One thing I've noticed here is that you don't get that sense of the infighting, right? It's almost like the community's coming together, and obviously, Rockaway, you've been quite instrumental in helping create this nice vibe. How do you therefore see the way that Cosmos shapes up against the others?
So I think if you look into the numbers and just be hard realists, then we can look into the traction. So for example, like the daily active wallets, the TVL, the number of developers. And from this perspective, if you do the comparison with all the other ecosystems, we will get to comparisons such as 320,000 people on Solana, or Ethereum daily 10 to 15 within the Cosmos. You have a couple of percentage points out of the TVL. For the Cosmos, from the developer perspective, if you start thinking who is actually building stuff, I would say it's roughly around from 18,000, 1,000 developers are building in Cosmos. So you could say it's up and coming. However, I think it's important what Dean was saying yesterday in his presentation, right? And giving these numbers into the perspective, right? And seeing actually what's the big picture, right? 1,000 active wallets or 1 million active wallets might seem huge, and the market share may be small. But I think the vision that the people here are building towards is actually the future where every person on the planet has a wallet, is able to transact seamlessly, is able to utilize the services. The number of developers that we are attracting, we are talking about tens of thousands today, but there's millions out there that are not building. So I think sometimes we get into these discussions of is Cosmos where it's happening? But I think if you zoom out and see the quality of the technology and think what vision we are building towards, I think it's instrumental, and we cannot lose sight of that.
So Dougie, let's sort of narrow it down a little. How about the way you see promising projects or developments that are coming up that get you excited about Cosmos?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I think what we're seeing is, on the infrastructure side especially, a lot of innovation happening. You look at Skip, for example. MEV is a very small problem right now in Cosmos, but if it if Cosmos is to see the traction that we all hope it sees, it's going to become an enormous problem, especially in like a fragmented ecosystem like Cosmos. So Skip's doing some incredible work to address that, and they're also like moving over to Celestia, which is like the next thing that I think is very interesting. Celestia is like debatably part of Cosmos, debatably not, but I think IBC will be very centric to Celestia, and so in my opinion, that kind of makes it Cosmos. And I think like when you introduce rollups to Cosmos, you're going to see a lot more use cases emerge, because I think like right now in Cosmos, it's kind of a one-size-fits-all approach where you launch a sovereign L1/app chain, and that's what you do. But when you bring in rollups, you can do a lot more things. So I think like Celestia, Skip, and then obviously there's a DYDX, Say. And I'm not a trader myself, but if you're a trader, I'm sure it's exciting to look at.
How about you? Do you agree with this short list? Have you got other names to add?
Well, I mean, Dougie and I are friends. I'm not going to pick on him too much. But no, I think I'm just going to throw out a couple that I like lately, mostly for specific reasons. Like Noble, I think is really interesting, just because what I'm really looking for in the long chain, like in a long thesis in the space, is like, can we create our own sovereign value that's not tied to a stable coin, right? Or what is our notion of value, right? Because if we keep sitting out here like mirroring the central banking system, I think we're just tied to that forever, right? So having something that is an asset issuance platform that then can tie into things like what Agoric is doing with stablecoins, we can create our own notions of value. And I think that's really, really interesting, especially with Noble, of course, is doing USDC issuance, sure, but that's just the first step. So I'm really interested in seeing what other asset classes they bring into Cosmos so that we can then actually say, like, we can have a real Bitcoin pizza day, but we can, have some new asset that we're fine paying with, right? That's not USDC, that's crypto native, and that's why asset issuance natively is super interesting. Yeah.
What do you think, Amos? Have you got favorites?
To me, about before like the project specifically, it's in 2016 there was a very famous article on TechCrunch which was saying all of the cool kids are building on Ethereum, right? I was building on Bitcoin at that time. Anyway, so I feel kind of like the same thing, like all of the cool kids are building on Cosmos right now. And that's kind of like, as VCs, we hear a lot of people pitch ideas, and it's around like, I would say half of them are building on Cosmos, which is great. Specific projects, I'm not going to shield the projects that we invested in. Yeah, like some of them spoke here on the conference today, like, Lava, I'm very excited about the work that XLR are doing, both for Cosmos and generally cross-chain. And many more. I'm really,
So what about general developments that are coming up that you can maybe look at over the rest of the year that help all the projects in Cosmos? People have been talking obviously here about Say network and DYDX. Obviously, the stablecoin issue is important. Are there other developments, Marek, that you're interested in that you can see are going to help the whole ecosystem?
Yeah, I think like I echo like what was already said in some ways. So I think like the Nobile and bringing the USDC into the ecosystem will be like a huge unlock for the entire liquidity. I think there is going to be a plethora of trading venues that will actually start competing with the centralized exchanges, and they will start matching the performance and experience from the trader perspective. I think, for example, like Vega, Injective, and others, and DYDX in this basket. But I think it's going to be like very important from the perspective of we are actually building products finally that are not trading off decentralization for be it trader experience, gas fees, or something, but we are actually like matching and creating products that are for the users. And you're starting from the user-centric design, designing what they need, want, and then the technology is helping you. And then I think like another huge unlock, which is happening within the Cosmos, is I think like due to the XLR and their VM and ability to spin up cross-chain application. I think there is like multiple projects that are building that. It's also positioning the Cosmos ecosystem across the entire, let's say, blockchain landscape, and enables to build actually this consumer-focused application. So I think it's like unlocking a new paradigm where we're starting from what is the blockchain that I need, and then like what are the constraints, and then I build something, and then the user needs to oblige versus to a paradigm where we start from the design. What does the user want? What should be the workflow or user flow for them, and then designing the application from this perspective. I think this, we will see multiple projects coming up in this category, which are going to be quite exciting and actually will solve real problems to people.
Right. So obviously here, the participants at this conference are supporters of Cosmos and like one project more than another, etc. But I'm wondering, can you share the investor perspective? Meaning, when you're looking at a project, right, or when you're looking at the system, what is it from an investor's point of view that you need to see? Are there specific metrics? Are there things that you're looking out for in a team? Just give people an idea of your view of what makes a good project. How about starting with you, Dougie?
Yeah, so we invest very early stage, and so it's definitely less metric driven, I'd say, than like a later stage investment, for example. What we look for and what Cosmos has a lot of is like paradigm shifting technology. And I think a fantastic example is like Anoma. And like they've been working on Intense for over a year now, doing amazing innovation on the privacy side of things. And right now they're just starting to capture the zeitgeist. But like about a year ago, like no one really knew what they were doing. And so I think like, we try to look at things from like a fundamental thing, like a fundamental perspective and be like, where's the space heading towards? What's going to unlock new use cases? Because like quite frankly, the use cases that are enabled today are small, and ideally there's a lot more like adoption that happens long term. And so we look for the areas that will catalyze those events. And so like there's a lot of that happening in Cosmos, which is why I think it's such a great space to be. But definitely like it's very much a landscape-driven kind of thesis that we have. Like we look at the space, we think about where it's going to be in 5 years, and then we invest in the teams that are building towards that future today.
Yeah. How about you, Amos? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the same in terms of the early stage, right? So the first thing that you look at in early stage in general, yeah, it's the team. Who they are they coming from the background of the problem that they want to solve, and how strong they are. And then, it really needs an app chain. In the case of Cosmos, right? It's like people are very excited about Cosmos, and they have a problem or something that they want to develop, and they just build their own chain. But building your own chain doesn't make sense most of the times, yeah? So kind of like, this is like the first thing. And then, of course, does it create new value? Is it just another product from the same segment, which is a little bit better? Or it really opens up a new world of use cases? And then, yeah, all of the other things that you look in investment, regardless of if it is a Cosmos investment or not.
Right. So that is actually really good feedback to teams, right? That, when they're building something, first of all, do you ask that basic question? We sometimes ask it a blockchain overall, but like, do you need an app chain? That's good criteria for everyone. Everybody always talks when they're investing in the team, because the team is going to be what drives it. Is there anything particular about the culture of Cosmos, Yahad, that brings up certain characteristics of a team that make it valuable, make it attractive?
I think a year ago I would have answered this differently. I think I've not been in this since the beginning. I got into it around late 2019, 2020, really with the Regen Network team, right, is what pulled me into Cosmos. But what I really, answering it now, I think we need new ideas and new blood, and I think we need to start changing the culture a little bit, not because it's bad, but because it needs to evolve, right? Because when I think about it, you come into Cosmos, you didn't have the ability to run security, you didn't have a bunch of other things that kind of help you jumpstart your own app chain. You just had to know the right people. You had to have the right relationships, right? That's fine. I actually think, though, that the bigger the ecosystem gets, the less it becomes reliant on your personal relationships, and then it becomes a real thriving ecosystem. So I want to see two things, really. I want to see new ideas and new blood, right? We need to start moving to evolving the initial culture that jump-started Cosmos, which it's obviously, look at it. Go to Map of Zones today. It's a $13 billion ecosystem. It's doing great, right? We're in the bottom of a bear market. There's a billion, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm off by a scale of zero, maybe off by 1 0. I think it's 1 billion in IBC volume in the last month, right? That's a lot, right? But, so it's not to criticize Cosmos, I just think we need to evolve it now, right? It's thriving, it's big, it needs to really start to move away from its initial conditions onto its next stage.
So new blood, new ideas. Do you see that coming in, Marek?
I think so. I think like when we are looking into the teams, we also like to see, let's say, resilience and like ability to deliver. And also like when we reflect on many of the investments, you know, they don't always go as planned. So like ability to like quickly gather the feedback from the market and like have the ability to recognize the message that is being received and act accordingly. Change the business plan. You know, there is like some amazing companies in our portfolio that have pivoted 2 to 3 times. And it's about this resilience of, you know, how do you face hardship? How do you react? Are you, you know, quick enough to react? What makes like the great teams? And I think the second is also like how the team actually works together. Like what is the culture in the team? You know, is there a fit between the team and the product and the problem that is being solved?
So you're probably seeing a lot of resilience at the moment, right? This is, you know, when you're tested, if you come through this now, you're battle tested.
Yeah, I mean, if you're here, then you know you're already kind of like battle tested, right?
Yes.
Right. And you're talking about money, right? You're going to put money in projects, and you can put it here or you can put it there. There's always an opportunity cost. It's risk reward. So, you know, no one's got a crystal ball, but you do have to have a thesis that you expect to play out, you hope plays out. What are the opportunities and risks around Cosmos? What are the major risks? What are the major opportunities over the next, let's say, couple of years?
I think the biggest risk is failing to innovate while everyone else is catching up / has caught up. Like it's undeniable right now that rollups are going to vastly resemble what Cosmos has already built. Like the OP stack, it's essentially the same exact recipe, but they are leveraging the network effects of Ethereum, which are, for this space, massive. And so Cosmos needs to continue pushing the envelope and innovating, because what's going to happen if the tech looks largely identical is teams are going to go build where the network effects are and where the liquidity is, which is Ethereum. So Cosmos, again, said it earlier, it's like the frontier. It needs to keep being that. And so again, I think with like the big opportunities are embracing some of the stuff that like Celestia is doing, rollups are doing on Ethereum, and like those things. I think like we don't have to only do L1 app chains. You can also have rollups, and I'm seeing Cosmos teams kind of embrace this now. I think privacy, Sunny actually talked about this earlier, is a massive opportunity for Cosmos. Like the teams that are pushing the envelope in privacy basically are all across the board on Cosmos. And I think if you look at Penumbra, Anoma, like Secret Network, and a number of other teams, like there is so much innovation in privacy, so maybe that's the thing. Like I think you need a high degree of sovereignty to be properly private, and so I think that correlation might actually drive Cosmos' like next wave of innovation.
You were nodding along there, so have you got anything to add?
Oh, he named all the projects I love. Yeah. But like, you know, NIM, Penumbra, these are all really great opportunities, because I think like, you know, I'm not really speaking from my investor voice now, but I feel like with privacy, starting the space as a publicly available, fully readable, legible blockchain made sense for 2008 and 2009 for why Satoshi and whoever the group was behind that made those choices. But you look now at what publicly legible blockchains enable, and there's a reason why I, you know, privately invest in a lot of great builders who are doing privacy networks. We need these things, right? So +1 to all that, Dougie.
So that's on the opportunity side. If we're in the future and we're looking back and we're saying, oh, it didn't work as well as we wanted, well, what would have been the things? What are these risks out there that would stop Cosmos getting to where you want it to get to?
Oh, can I jump in on that real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Governance risks, I think, right? Yeah. Like earlier, I was like, oh, this is a feature, but it's two-sided, right? It has its own bugs. So like, if you look at like the Atom 2.0 process, I liked a ton of what was in that Atom 2.0 white paper, right? But like, you go through, I'm not even critiquing what's in the white paper. I think it's all, I have no comment on that. Just getting that through and getting people to understand the opportunity on a case-by-case basis. I think you measure signal and intent, maybe with Anoma, on you know, this part of it, that part of it, the other part of it, and you actually see like, what do developers want to ship? What do we all think is good? How do we get it out the door piece by piece instead of trying to jam it through all in one go? Things like that might end up causing a ton of infighting and zero progress, right? I still think I'm looking forward to that thing coming back, you know, and being surfaced as we need it, right? But governance risk I see is like a big issue.
So that's a big one from you. Anybody else got another risk that might keep you up at night?
Well, I don't think like keeping up at night, yeah, but I think one challenge, right, is to keep this ecosystem as an ecosystem, right? You're starting to see that a little bit right now. That people are kind of like spinning out, or like the glue that basically connects all of the projects. It's something that is in focus in the ecosystem, right? But I'm not sure it's 100% working. And I think more effort should be done there to understand how to keep all of them connected in a better way.
Got it. So shifting to something that's a little more specific to the participants, you get pitched. In fact, I've seen it, right? You know, I'm out here in the conference and talking to teams that are hoping to get money, and then they'll chase you, and they're hustling, right? They're coming and talking to you. But what advice do you have for a founder, right? They're here at Cosmos. They have a vision, they want to build, and they are here and they pitch you. What's the advice you give anybody in that situation about how they can get your attention and then get your money?
Can I take
Go for
this?
it.
Okay, so I think, like, for example, know what Jahid is interested in, right? Like, don't pitch him stuff that is not in his scope. This is,
Yes.
this is, I think, one of the most important things that, I was an entrepreneur as well. I raised money from VCs, etc. I would do my work before going and speaking with an investor, right? Trying to understand what is the right timing, what is wrong timing. But I think more than that, understand what interests him. What is he right on? What is he passionate about? And pitch him those ideas. Don't pitch him an idea that is out of his scope, because
It's
it
a
will be.
non-starter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like the base rule. And then, understand that also, what is the right setup to do that, right? Remember that, some people go in conferences and people want to pitch them, which is fine. Like, as an investor, you're always trying to be as nice as possible, etc. But appreciate the time and, the right balance.
I don't know.
Sure. I think it's important. I would again sound the resilience. So even though know whom to pitch, but prepare and have a long list of people you want to talk to. So when you go to conferences, know who is there and try to plan meetings with all of them, and try to get in front of them. I think having even if it's maybe not in scope, you can get a feedback that is useful in the meeting. So I think maybe it's not appropriate, but at least the person can, or the founder can get a feedback on the idea and enrich and move forward from it. Secondly, I think know the market and understand the problem and what you are building, and be very tied up on these. For myself personally is very important to see that the person understand the problem that they are solving. And how it actually unlocks the value. And so I think being very well prepared and being professional and giving the pitch at the right time is makes a big difference.
I'm gonna say 3 words here, conviction. That's the most important thing that I look for is you can be directionally wrong, but if you believe that, I'll actually be a lot more interested than someone who's kind of just wishy-washy following the trends. So I want to if you're gonna talk to me, have conviction and have a unique view on where things are evolving, and I'm always interested in having those conversations. You can always learn things, and I see value in people with conviction.
So if people do their homework, they know what your thesis is, they walk in the door prepared, and they show you conviction, that there are a few good steps that they can make. Great.
Plus, just what Emma said, when I started my company too, I went and said, hey, who are the top specialist infrastructure investors in the US? And who are the top generalist investors who have infrastructure investments in their portfolio? And I only pitched those people, right? I didn't go to for instance, for me, I have a really weird thesis, right? Where we're building stuff for environmental data, we're looking at DeFi for climate, and then we're also looking at frontier tech. And so wrapping those 3 things together, you're coming to me with a gaming thing. I'm just why does this keep happening to me? So yeah, just it takes a few seconds. Stop using the AI scrapers, please. Please.
Guys, unique regen gaming infrastructure.
Yes, please. You say that, but I've literally met people who've said that.
I know.
So I think you've given great advice, guys. You've explained what your vision is for Cosmos and how the individual projects can do well here. Lightning round, we're wrapping up. Just say what you like about Cosmos. You know, what's the main thing that Cosmos is for you, Marek?
Just ability to build whatever.
Dougie?
Sovereignty and optionality.
You gotta think. Amos?
It's a place to innovate.
Place to innovate. Jahad, you can take his.
I'm sorry. You had me. Yeah, that's
Like
what I
I've
was
been
gonna
front
say.
running.
So it means the investment community agrees, and there's a lot of positives that are coming ahead for Cosmos. Thank you very much, everybody, and thanks to our panel.
Sorry, sir.
That's good, man.
Thank you so much. That was great.